Bring the pieces here. You know, we're here today with many emotions, from triumph to despair, many questions highlighted by what now, God? Approximately 150 million popular votes were cast at our election, and there are approximately 320 million Americans in our country. About 70 million for one candidate, about 75 million for another candidate. About as split as you can get. Jesus, the author of life, always knew and always knows the big picture. We're glad. Jesus was expressing powerful emotions of his own on his way to the cross. Luke 19:37-44. When he came near the place where the road goes down the Mount of Olives, the whole crowd of disciples began joyfully God in loud voices for all the miracles they had seen. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to Jesus, Jesus, or teacher, rebuke your disciples. I tell you, he replied, if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out. As he approached Jerusalem and saw the city, he wept over it and said, if you, even you, had only known on this day what would bring you peace. But now it's hidden from your eyes. The days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment against you and encircle you and hem you in on every side. They will dash you to the ground, you and the children within your walls. They will not leave one stone on another, because you did not recognize the time of God's coming to you. And he knew that in less than 40 years, Jerusalem would be attacked and destroyed. And not one stone was left upon another. All throughout Jesus' ministry, he talked about the kingdom, his kingdom, appealing to us as his followers to see the size and the scope of his kingdom here on earth and operating throughout the world. And its effect, his kingdom effect on the earth. And he taught his disciples, I want you to pray this. They asked, Father, your kingdom come, and your will be done on earth just as it is in heaven. I think that applies to us. So we know God's kingdom encompasses our mindsets, our actions, even as he spoke and he ministered in the midst of occupying Rome. One could even make a case that Christ, his kingdom, overcame Rome years later. It still operated. When Rome, like all nations, decay because they're depending on themselves to be their own gods. They're depending on themselves as the arbiters of truth. I compiled a list of First Testament and New Testament persons who listened to God throughout their lives and who walked with integrity in the midst of great pressure. And so I looked up the term integrity. That just seems to be a word that I'm chewing on right now. And this is what I find, meaning of integrity. The quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. A moral uprightness. the state of being whole and undivided. I think that's crucial right now. Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering. But on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted?" Noah, a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while the wife of his master said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge, the master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" Now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. "When a prophet is among you, I reveal myself to him in visions and speak to him in dreams. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all his house. With him I speak face to face. He sees the form of the Lord." After the death of Moses, the Lord said to Joshua, "I will give you every place where you set your foot. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to them, their forefathers. Be careful to obey the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it. Meditate on it day and night, that you may be successful wherever you go." Samuel anoints David. The Lord said to Samuel, "The Lord does not look at the things man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Esther, I'm going to read Esther 7. So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet. As they were drinking wine on the second day, the king asked, "Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted." Then Queen Esther answered, "If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king." The king asked, "Who is the man who would do such a thing?" Esther answered, "The adversary and enemy is the vile Haman." Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. The king got up in rage, left his wine, and went out into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining. The king exclaimed, "Will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house?" As soon as the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Then one of the eunuchs said, "A gallows 75 feet high stands by Haman's house." The king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. Integrity in the midst of chaos. Integrity not only responds, but it initiates. It speaks out, just like Esther did. Esther spoke out against the we are presently in the midst of an integrity crisis, a culture war. Pastor Chris Valentin points out, and I quote, "If the devil knew what was going to happen at the cross, he would have killed everybody who is trying to kill Jesus. The devil's overconfident miscalculation was his demise, but it is our victory. Jesus not only had the final say over the works of the enemy, he is the final say today, tomorrow, and always." The active church, the visible, not the visible, the active church, followers of Christ can see the big picture and the immediate picture. Now is the time to earnestly pray, fast, whatever the Lord activates you to do for the next 70 days. To fast, to lift up God's prophetic words, to declare those out loud. I'd like to read, and we'll put it on the screen, Jesus' words to us today, Matthew 16, 13 to 19. And if we can declare these together. Ready? When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." We're now called to use, and always have been, the keys of the kingdom. To bind and to loose. To walk actively in integrity. To declare God's word. To love with his love. And to overcome. To claim every one of God's promises. And to trust him to overcome. I'm going to have Marlene to pray a prayer, and then we'll have a final worship song.